It's about that time again. What is up? If you're watching this, that means you got another day. Guys, I actually kind of enjoy this quarantine thing in a weird way. Maybe because I get to stay inside and catch up on all these car edits without any kind of FOMO. I reached out to you guys and asked you to send me some of your best photos so that I can take a look at them and kind of offer my feedback. Now, keep in mind, two things. One, if I didn't pick your photo, it doesn't mean it's a bad photo. Number two, my opinion is the only thing I'm offering here. So if you don't like it, that's fine. This is not fact. This is art, and there's no right or wrong way to do this. Car photos are all taken very differently. Photography in general is very different, and that's what makes each of us unique creators. Now, first up here, we got a photo from World's Greatest Motors. He's got this Huracan. It looks like it's obviously got some aftermarket stuff on it. It doesn't appear to be a perf because we got some exhaust pipes here on the back and not in the center. Right off the bat, this looks off. It looks off on the crop. Let's take a look here. Based off the grid, it appears to be the car looks straight, but because of the angle of the brick here and the concrete, like just to my eyeballs, it looks off. So the crop is a little weird. Also, it's a horizontal crop. Now, if this is for a desktop background or a print or a website banner, money. If this is for Instagram, it's a waste of space, because if you use a horizontal crop, I know it looks really great with a wide shot of a car on your camera and on your computer when you're editing, but when you upload it onto Instagram, you're only using a fraction of the space that you could be using, and you statistically don't get as much engagement or likes on the photo. Now, I know, like we always say, like, oh, you're not in it for the likes, but it literally just looks better on your page. It looks better. It's more appealing to the eye, and it challenges you to capture cars in a different way when you have to shoot vertically. So I pretty much only shoot horizontally if I'm specifically doing it for a desktop background, website banner, ad, or if I'm printing it. Pretty much vertical for everything else. So I would adjust the crop on that. Not sure if you used a polarizer or not, but we have a lot of reflections in the driver's side window here. It looks like there's some areas that we could have cleaned up here, like the grass and some of the gravel in the foreground, some of the splotches on the bricks. Like, you don't have to get everything. This square, for example, should have been taken out in Photoshop. Again, in my opinion, this green thing here is distracting to my eye. And then you might have even wanted to color in this white and make it match the black background or the brick background. The focus on the car is great. Whatever you did to the car to make it pop, it pops, especially with those wheels. God, those wheels are gorgeous. And you pulled a lot of the color, enough of the color out of the white paint to make the white paint look good, but not look like you photoshopped it too much. So well done there. We can't really see the tire detail here or some of the details of the car because of how you adjusted, I guess, your tone curve or your blacks. So it would be nice to see that so it doesn't just look like it's floating on some silver dishes here. Other than that, your curves look pretty nice. This is a high saturation, high contrast type edit, which is how I used to do this back in the day, but I've been trying to push myself to kind of branch out into other ways. Nothing wrong with high contrast, high saturation. It's just what I noticed right off the bat. Other than that, I'm trying to think of how you could have done the background differently. I would pull the yellows out. I would pull the yellows out up here because you have yellow wheels, and we want the focus to go to that, not the brick. And there's a lot of, I know maybe to the untrained eye it doesn't appear so, but there's a lot of yellow and orange action in these bricks. I know most people just be like, oh yeah, they're brown or they're red. There's actually a lot of yellow. Pull the yellow out and the car will pop. That's probably the big takeaway on this photo. You got a little bit of a vignette going on here. I like, that's the Bilko style. I like that. I would throw in a little bit of a darker gradient here in the foreground. And you'll see how that kind of just draws your eye in more to the car. And then same thing on the top here. And then let me just show you what pulling out the yellows does, what I'm talking about. So we go to the yellows here and drop that. And obviously, like, I would have to mask out the car so it does, ignore it pulling it out of the wheels. But you see how the yellow comes out of the background? The background, it doesn't look more plain. It just draws your eye to the car more. You could even play with the oranges here and try to pull some of the, not too much out, but just a little bit. And then suddenly the car becomes more of a focus. Greens can also probably mostly go. there. And then that white green is still there, but it's still not drawing you away from those wheels, which are the center of attention here. All right, so nice work, World's Greatest Motors. Love the subject, love the wheels. Next up is a submission from Stealth Stang. I follow this guy on IG. He takes some really killer photos. And this is a sick car. And you shot directly into the sun, which, bold move, but you know what? It worked, because whatever your camera you were using, you pulled enough detail out of it to get all the color back in the car. Love that. Love these wheels too. These are nice. Right off the bat, I noticed this flare right here. It's just not natural looking. I know it's probably coming from the sun or bouncing off the ground or something. Maybe you added it in post and forgot to erase all this. I don't know, but it's a weird color hue. It takes away from the car, and it's greenish, and it just needs to go. So I would either clone stamp that out or pull the saturation from it, something to get rid of that. You can clean up some of these little etches in the pavement, like here and here and here. Now you don't want to pull all of it out so it doesn't look unnatural, but like some of these darker splotches I would take out to just give it a nice smooth clean look. And like the dark splotch here and here can go. The sun flare off the top of the, or the bottom of the overpass is glorious. Just don't change anything about that. If you really wanted to be nitpicky, you could pull the lines out of the back window here to let more of that sun in. These headlights, Dodge does this, I guess, sometimes. The 4GT is the worst offender, but here, I'm going to just take you through this right now. This rainbow look, even some of the top photographers out there just always seem to forget to pull that out. And in my opinion, it's so distracting, and there's an easy fix. So I just paint these in. This is very quick, of course. I could do a much better job. Paint these in with the brush tool, drop the exposure just a tad, drop that saturation a ton, raise the clarity up, maybe the dehaze a tad, play with the whites and the highlights, and look at that. Rainbow is pretty much gone. And now you got some mean looking headlights. Obviously you can play with the dehaze and the clarity so they don't look different from the rest of the car. But you want the headlight detail inside to pop without your blacks getting too crushed. Because like if they look like this, that's not good. So you got to play with the rest of it so it matches the overall, I don't know if hue's not the right word, exposure of the rest of the car, but you pull that rainbow look out of it. The wheel detail really pops in this, so nice work there. The car is evenly lit, and it's not shadowy anywhere, which great work there. I love how the sun glare is reflecting off the bottom. You managed to separate the car from the background too. So the car is very blue and it's not orange like the background is. That is a huge thing that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but when your eye sees it, you can tell right off the bat, like this is a pleasing photo to look at. So, and I always tell people, whether you do it in Photoshop or whether you go the brush like I do and paint the whole car out, separate the car from the background and adjust settings in the car. If you want more details on that, watch one of my tutorials. All right, moving on. Nice work, by the way, Stealth Stang. This is a good photo. Next up, submission from Jonah Anderson Photography, the Supra. Now, I picked this one just because I like the yellow on the green that we have going on here. Like, it's just a very smooth, easy looking tones. And you don't have a license plate. Nice touch. I would have taken this into Photoshop and removed little glares on the car like that, and some of the rocks on the ground here. I would have added a little more light on the back end. Maybe I definitely would have removed that dumpster like first. Maybe gotten rid of these power lines using clone stem. This tree right here stands out. It's super yellow, and so are some of this yellowness here. I would have either made them a little more orange or just pulled some of the saturation out so that way the Supra pops more. I would have grabbed a paintbrush and pulled the saturation out of the wheels because they're kind of bluish greenish. So you need to make those like silver or like closer to black, I guess, that gunmetal gray. You could, I mean, it looks like you have a gradient up here, but like a gradient could maybe a little bit darker up to add that shady look. In the top, I would have clone stamped out this brick thing, whatever that is. The framing of this is a little awkward, like how you, like the angle that you chose. I would have maybe, like, if you could have gotten the Supra more straightened out, like this, but given yourself a little more room on the edges to kind of see a little more of the environment. Like this is like in an awkward place. It's not a detail shot, but it's also not a wide shot. It's just like you filled the camera with the car picture, but you did, or the car, but you didn't really tell a story with it. It's like, it's a car sitting under a shady tree, but what else is going on in the photo? Like, give me the whole vibe of the scene. I'm very limited on it. So either take a detailed shot or take a wider shot, but like this is just awkwardly not close enough or not far enough away from the Supra. But I like the color, I like the subject, I like that you have it under the shady tree and even light, bonus points for that. And I like I said, whatever softness or grainy look you added to this, it's just the right touch. So nice work there, Jonah Anderson Photography. Next up, Henry Nichols, if I'm saying that right. Man, you hit me with a soft spot. You sent me a Mustang. We had to critique it, obviously. This is pretty well lit, although the front half of the car, like this section, seems to be brighter than the back end, which is kind of weird. It's even a different shade of red. If you want more tips on how to shade and properly expose a red Mustang, exactly, go check out Voodoo Child on IG. I think he even has a YouTube channel with some tutorials on literally his red Shelby and how he does that, because red is a pain to get right. Your skies are also varying in hues. You know, it's like it's brighter over here, it's darker over here. There's yellow mixed in. Like, I would get rid of the yellow in the clouds if you can. You know, again, I'm personally a fan of the gradient that, you know, draws your eyes in. So, you know, darkening that foreground already is bringing your, you know, eyes to the Mustang. I would go into Photoshop and clone stamp out some of these harsher glare points like here, and then this area on the driver's side is just messy. However you polarized it, like the front windshield is just smooth as butter, and then the side one is just like, somebody help me. So either by pulling out the saturation and cleaning it up with like a smoothing brush or Photoshop or something, do something there. And then maybe add a little dehaze to this background. Like if we started to paint in this background a little bit with, ignore that. If we started to paint it in with like a dehaze to bring some detail back, you can blur it, but just bring some detail back into these clouds. Like, look at what just the dehaze slider does. Like you can see, like we don't want the HDR look, so obviously you'll have to play with the saturation. So when you ramp up dehaze, you get detail back, but it, as you can see, it makes your blues look ridiculous. So a way that I correct this with the sky, and I've done this in my Stradman edits that you can see tutorials on, you pull the saturation out and you swing the temperature over a little bit and the exposure down a little bit. Oh, not that much. Obviously I can play with these like all day long, but like really the key is the exposure, or sorry, the saturation down, and it's like there's just a hint of blue, and like you really start to advance it when you start messing with the hue of it, where I make it a little bit darker, pull that, and you play the luminance. This is sloppy, but you get the point. If you want more help on like getting your sky to look right, check out one of my tutorials, but I would have done something to this sky. And then the rainbow look on the headlights, I assume that's probably just an aftermarket effect this guy added to the car. My personal taste, rainbow on a red Mustang, it's like a red Mustang is as classic and American as you can get, and then you throw on a rainbow headlight accessory, I would say no. I would pull the saturation out of that and tell that guy to go switch his mods out. All right, but dope photo, love the Mustang, and love the angle. The angle is great, and the framing is nice, but go vertical next time. It'll look nicer on Instagram, trust me. But good shot, Henry Nichols. Moving on. We have a Mustang on a helipad. Now, level 100 out of 100 on location. Like, a Mustang on a helipad with a view of the city is sick, man. And even the skies, it looks like you got stars in there. Like, this was clearly a long exposure shot. You got the interior lit up. Like, you're thinking outside the box. By the way, this is Val, the camera guy. You're totally thinking outside the box. I love the Mustang, obviously. Here's some places that I would have cleaned this up. One, you've got like purple hues mixed in with these blues, and it's like a weird kind of, I don't know, it's just not a natural hue. All your stylistic choices, but I personally go for just a more natural look. Sometimes I like push the barrier a little bit, you know, so you get something a little bit more artistic, I guess, but this is like way bright hue on the slider. I don't even know if I would like, let me see if I can, no, it's beyond saving. And then like maybe this one, what if we pulled out the saturation on that? I don't know, that light blue, you've got it, that's a tone curve thing. You've got it all over the photo, but yeah, I don't know, maybe something more like that. I love how the stars are poking out over the clouds. This is dope. Go check out Jimmy Zhang on YouTube on how to get some really clean light reflections on your cars, because it just ends right here as a very harsh line. If you want like a clean, you know, glow around your car, I know he does some very tedious long edits on that, but it pays off. Let me undo some of these edits. Your cabin is a little overexposed, as are some of these areas. So like maybe the timer on your exposure was just a little bit too long. You could have done it lower and then just brightened it up in post. I don't know what kind of camera you're using, if you could have recovered a lot of these shadows, but that's probably the route I would have taken. And then I would have also painted the car and separated it more from the setting, because the car almost like blends in. It has a similar tone curve and exposure as the environment around it, and your taillights are overexposed too. So I would have done some work there. And then obviously gone into Photoshop and cleaned up like these squiggles, you know, this rock, some of the larger items here, like these billboards, this blur, whatever it is, that blur, whatever it is, these dots back here, this snake looking thing. I would have gotten all that out in post and drawn as much attention to the Mustang as I can, because it's a very busy background. And guess what? You're horizontal too, so go vertical. But other than that, sick location, you're thinking outside the box, and love the sky full of stars, Val. And you know what, Val? You got 2 photos, because this thing was way too dope for me to ignore. This, I think, was the dopest photo anyone submitted. And it's a JDM car, so you know that I really had to like it to appreciate a photo of a JDM car. The sky is purple and pink, which if you look way down in my feed, you will see that I was doing those exact same edits on my cars. Photos at one point. I was in love with the cotton candy sky, so you know what? If that floats your boat, run with it. Personally now, I like the darker, desaturated blue skies that you'll see in some of my car photos, or the stormy skies, of course. You have a glowing sun flare with a purple sky. Either it's twilight or it's sunset, but it's not both. I would pick one or the other, because it's like confusing to me. I would have gone into Photoshop right off the bat and gotten rid of that car and this tent looking thing and this car. The angle is pristine. The reflection is super crispy. Like your water is just super still and glossy. I love it. And you pulled the color out of the GTR. Like, nice work. And it separates it from the background. The GTR appears to be lined up and cropped evenly, but for some reason, like, the bridge looks off. Like, the bridge is straight or the GTR is straight. It's like you have to pick. I don't know if that's a thing you'd have to fix, like, on site or something, but you know, you did the right thing for lining up the GTR first, so whatever. I would have cleaned up a little bit of like the crack here and the splotch here and stuff in Photoshop. That line can go, but you know, leave the graffiti, leave the rocks in the water. That's nice. Your watermark, I almost didn't even notice it, literally on the water. Nice work. The wing on this GTR is gorgeous. The whites on the GTR are a tad bit overexposed. You maybe could dial that down a little bit. And the overall saturation in the photo is pretty damn high. You maybe could dial that down a little bit. I would have pulled all the color, or most of the color, out of this overpass. So that way the sky has a lot of color and the overpass has just a little bit, you know, just a tad. And then of course the water keeps all the same color as the sky does. Hard to tell without actually doing it though, if that would look good. And then I don't know if it's like the quality of the photo you sent in, but like, I don't know, maybe everything just looks like it was, maybe you bumped the camera on the tripod or something. Like it looks like not everything is razor sharp focus. And it's a little splotchy. Maybe that's just ramping up the whites too much or something. I don't know. But I know this is like getting super detailed, but like your splotchiness here and even like the detail on your like photo, like I'm losing detail in the pipes. And it's very grainy. Maybe you just ramped up the exposure a ton. It's hard to guess. But when you get into the details on that close of zooming in, when you zoom out, you can tell. I mean, you can kind of get away with it on Instagram, but like in the long run, like it will look better if your photos look good this zoomed in, then they'll look great zoomed out. Other than that, the photo's sick. Like I said, it was my favorite one. It caught my eye and it earned you 2 submissions. So nice work, Val, the camera guy, impressing a muscle car guy with a JDM car. And finally, we have a submission from Joseph. Oh God, okay, Urquhart. Unique last name. I have some followers from all over the world. So wherever you're from, man, drop a comment. Would love to know. where you're from. That's so cool. This photo I picked because it had, I think, the most potential. Like, you have some sick angles going on here. We've got the city in the background, half hidden by fog, which is epic. You've got this dude in his business outfit walking to, you know, maybe his BMW, which I have always said has the sickest stock wheels of all time. And it's perfectly centered. You got it in between the two flower pots. Like, there's so much that I would just dive into on this photo to take it to the next level. Like, you're at good right now. Like, you could take this to great, and you're so close. Even the dude's like step is perfectly, like, you hit the shutter right on the money. First thing, we have a lot of empty space up here. Like, duh, you could add lightning in, but you could also add in a gradient. Like, I don't know how this is gonna look, but like, I don't know. Maybe leave it blown out. Crop it down a little bit, maybe. So you just less of that space. There's so much white space. I mean, you're kind of tightening it up there. This isn't a perfect crop, but like, you get the point. The other thing is that the car is the same exposure of everything else. You know, paint in the car. Paint in the car here. I'm doing this very rough edit. And then just look at what happens when we brighten up the car a little bit, throw in some dehaze, and dial down that just a little bit. And then the shadows. This is like the sloppiest edit of all time, but you get my point. Now the car's like, it's popping at least a little bit more. Obviously, I would go in with a much cleaner edit, and I'm working with a JPEG, so it's like getting rough with the color information that I have to work with. But you want the car to be the focus. And then you could even go in and you could even paint this cityscape here, you know, and make it pop even more with you're all about separating layers, right? Because you've got something in the foreground, you got something in the midground / background, and they need to be different. So like, I would say the subject is one thing, the path and that dude are another thing, and then the city is a third thing. So like, you know, the city, I would, you know, you can add some clarity in, like a little bit, pull some of the saturation out. Now it's like looking a little more, I don't know what the word is, urban, and, you know, mess with that exposure and stuff. And then now the city is a little more separated because it's not as blue, it's not as distracting, and the car is the focus. The car, you know, you could even pull a Pleasantville effect with this and pull all the colors but red, and then it would really look crazy. Go into Photoshop and get rid of this. This literally looks like a homeless person. I don't know what that is. Get rid of that. Get rid of this pole. Get rid of that pole. Get rid of some of these like little black splotches in the cobblestone or whatever that is. Get rid of this crane. Get rid of that shadow. Like, clean it up a bunch. And then the glare on your car is ridiculous. Like, you need a polarizer all day long. And polarizer, what that does, for those of you that don't know, I have a link in the description to the polarizer I'm using on my lenses, but just get something that you can rotate that will basically jet black out your windows and also remove a lot of the glare on the side of the car. And a red car especially, like a polarizer will take this to another level. It'll also do you some favors on the buildings here. But other than that, sick photo, has a lot of potential. I like the moody mist, and there's a lot of directions that you could have taken this, but you got it framed up nice and you hit the shutter right on the money. So nice work, Joseph. All right, guys. I'm going to be editing a lot of photos and uploading every day for you. Of course, I'm going to still have vlogs, editing tutorials, things like that on every Tuesday and Thursday. Make sure you're subscribing because I'm going to keep uploading for you. I have some crazy stuff in the works right now. You're kidding yourself if you think I'm just sitting around in quarantine. There's a lot that I'm queuing up for once the gate comes out, guys. The stuff that's going to hit my YouTube channel is going to be ridiculous. And we've got some really, really big YouTubers in the works here. We have some brand deals in the works. We have some collabs. We have some models. We have some sponsors. Like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So make sure you're subscribed, and feel free to send me a photo in the DM anytime you want, just a quick little feedback. I'll send you guys some audio, but I want to do another one of these again soon. Make sure you throw it a like, and I'll catch you next week. Peace.